What's the most obvious hint a girl was interested in you but you missed all the signs? I was invited to her apartment to study on a Saturday night. After a little, she closed her door, we were on her bed, and we studied a little more until I left. I had a similar situation in college, except I failed to even come over. A girl from my chem lab realized we were also neighbors one day. She lived in the apartment upstairs from mine. The very night she figured it out, she came down and invited me to come study with her. I said, yeah, sure, and I shut the door. I didn't realize she meant right then because we had nothing to study for at the time. No upcoming test or anything, so I thought she just meant some unofficial time down the road. I only figured out what happened after she never talked to me again. My now wife gives me about this all the time, so it's safe to share here. Back when we were dating, it was a cold winter's night and she texted that she was cold and if there was anything I could do to warm her up. I offered to plastic seal her windows. Yeah, I totally missed that pitch. I was on a date with another woman at the time. I did not miss the pitch, but I could not accept it. My wife and I had been dating off and on for a few years. She dumped me. I dumped her. It was a little wild, but I was still into her. So my date is kind of lukewarm, and frankly, she's just kind of talking to her friends and not so much hanging with me. But I'm sitting at the campfire with some other friends and my future wife. She's my future wife, to be clear, sitting near me and says I'm cold. What are you going to do about it? She had never been so bluntly obvious about her intentions. I didn't even have a jacket or spare blanket or something to offer her. There was only one way to warm her up. But like I say, I had brought my date, not officially a girlfriend yet though, to this thing. So I couldn't just snuggle up to another woman. I was screaming inside to kick every social convention out the door. But what I did do, I had a good friend there and he took my date home and I took my future wife home after. Turns out my wife is celiac or maybe just gluten intolerant and had stopped eating gluten a couple months before this. So finally she was a real person again. Turns out one of the side effects of eating gluten when you can't tolerate it is severe depression. We got married something like 8 months later. Been together almost 9 years now. I ran into a girl who I knew a little through some friends. We were talking and she randomly asked if I wanted to play one-on-one basketball with her that afternoon. I had nothing else to do, so I said yes. We walked to her place to pick up a ball and for her to get changed. In her room, she handed me the basketball and then started undressing. I excused myself outside the door while she changed. She then held conversation with me while she got dressed in my line of sight. Then she asked, so do you want to go, or? And oblivious me said, yeah, sure, let's shoot some hoops. In hindsight, there was a lot of one-sided flirting on the court and afterward she again invited me to her place to cool down. But I declined, as I was sweaty and I went home to shower. I want to see the montage of you fouling her and playing aggressively while she's trying to flirt. She's being playful and lobbing the ball and you're smacking the out of it and waving the Matumbo finger, breaking her nose while shooting the three. My time to shine. I was in college in the early 90s and sitting in my dorm room alone. I was high as hell. The hot girl down the hall that I had a crush on and spoke to occasionally came to my room and asked if I would watch her dance routine that was her final for her dance class. I was like sure and went to her room. The room was dark except for some red lighting. I sat on the couch and she put on Enigma. This was a very clear sign that I missed completely. She began her dance. She was in a unitard and I was totally hot for this girl. She did what I would now consider a personal lap dance for me. I was petrified with lust over the whole thing. When the song was over, she came over to me, about 2 inches from my face while smiling, and said, "How was that?" I looked at her and said, "That was really cool. You'll do great," and left. I walked back to my room and left. Years later, I was driving my car to work, just daydreaming, like you do, and that memory popped up. I would have kicked myself had I been able to. Once upon a time, I was a 19-year-old engineering student enrolled in Calculus I, and there was this very attractive gal I sat next to the entire semester. We chatted, studied together, and became good acquaintances throughout the Cal. The week before finals, during one of our final lectures, she suggested I come over to her dorm to study, so I showed up later that day and was welcomed in by her roommate. She was sitting on her bed, textbook open, and papers laying about. And she was wearing a fuzzy bathrobe and fuzzy socks. This is important. I sat at her desk, got my own stuff out, asked what she was working on, and started working on the same material. About 5 minutes passed and her roommate piped up and said, "I'm going to X. I won't be back for about 4 hours." She was very specific about how long she would be gone. Then she left and locked the door behind her. Another few minutes passed and my study buddy asked if I was comfortable where I was and if I wanted to join her on the bed. I declined because I was comfortable and didn't want to mess up my notes. She asked if I was sure, a bit more playfully this time, to which I responded with the same answer. She replied with a simple okay, but in an obviously dejected tone. We continued studying in silence for a while, but eventually it came time for me to leave. As I was packing up my stuff, I glanced over and realized something. Underneath her robe was nothing. I didn't see a lot, but I saw enough to know that without any doubt. And even better was the fact that she saw that I saw, made eye contact, and made zero effort to cover up. I kind of froze before quickly packing up and leaving like a timid kitten. We didn't talk much after that, but I aced my calculus final. In high school, a gorgeous girl sent me anonymous love letters. I later found out she was the one sending them. She also asked me out to this dinner banquet thing. We went, but I was so shy I barely said anything. She still sent me letters afterwards. I had really low self-esteem and made every excuse to myself that she wasn't into me. It was like she was holding up a neon sign, "Tay, she likes me," and I didn't do anything about it. I never dated in high school because who'd be interested in me? In retrospect, I'm like 90% sure that a few girls I thought were out of my league were flirting with me once or twice. One was definitely into me for a while, and I was completely convinced that I was reading too much into it because she was too hot for me. As I played the organ, she would turn pages for me and brush her body against my back while moving from right to left behind the organ bench to grab the next page. I thought she was rubbing me due to tight quarters between my organ and the choir loft railing. I had a supervisor who did that. She was a short woman and would find any excuse to stand close behind me as I sat at my pod, with her boobs pressing right against my neck or shoulder when she could get away with it. Romance wasn't on the cards, she wasn't really my type, and I was moving away from that city not long after. But she was a cute lady, and while that short-term contract lasted, it was actually kind of comfortable and hot to feel her breasts being discreetly but firmly rubbed or pressed against me several times a day. When I was maybe 15-16, a really cute girl I met at a social event sat in my lap while we were talking about the season's new anime releases and later called me her boyfriend to a few mutual friends. Assuming this was either a cruel joke or just some really weird platonic behavior I wasn't familiar with, both pretty common occurrences in my life up to that point, I left the event without her number and basically never saw her again. After a lifetime of being called ugly, having a cripplingly bad self-image, and dealing with undiagnosed autism, I had no idea she was actually serious until one of our mutuals got at me weeks later to yell at me for ghosting her. For the record, despite having been in 4 long-term relationships by now at 32, I am still basically just as oblivious now as I was then. It's not great. Got home from work late to find my roommate had a little gathering with friends. He was already passed out in bed, and there were just 2 female friends of ours that were still up and wanting to keep the party going. They basically forced me to catch up with them, which I was all for by having me take shot after shot until I was on their level. All 3 of us ended up in my bed in just our underwear. Well, their level came and went, and right as things were about to pop off, I passed out. They eventually fell asleep too and told me in the morning they were disappointed we didn't get any further. Of course, as far as I was concerned, I still slept with 2 other women, haha. At bar about 10 years ago, she and I kept making eye contact. Every time our eyes would lock, she would smile and play with her hair. I'd just nod. She eventually came up to the bar next to me when there was no one at the front of the bar. She bumped into me after getting her drink and spilled it on my shirt. She immediately grabbed napkins and kept apologizing profusely and using the napkins to dry my shirt. I kept telling her it was fine. She offered me her number and kept saying she owed me a shirt and to contact her tomorrow and we will go get one. And maybe some lunch. I refused but took her number to be polite. Never entered the number in on my phone. About 6 months went by. I found the napkin with her number in my jacket pocket from that night. I ended up texting her. Now we are married, and I've never gotten that shirt replaced to this day. As for being dense, we laugh about it and she still gives me crap about it to this day. The shirt, I've gotten plenty of others in the years we have been together, just not the one that got ruined that night. Either way, started out as a failure to launch but ended up launching anyways, just not when the button was pushed. Had a load of moments where she was flirting and I missed it, but the moment this reminded me of was this. For context, she was my cousin's best friend, and for a few months my cousin lived with us. One day after moving out, they visited to pick some stuff up, and my crush tagged along. I had reclaimed my room, and my crush wanted to see how it changed. She had visited once before. She came in, saw my messy room, eyes looked around, and she saw my phone, so she grabbed it and entered her number, Presmart phone with passcodes. She jokingly said, "I named myself under ES, you know." So I said, no, that's not true, meaning I don't think she is a, but she probably took it as me not finding her attractive. I tried to edit the contact, ended up deleting it by accident, was too ashamed to ask for it again. The girl who turned on Rape Me by Nirvana while I was driving, laid back her passenger seat, stared at me and sang every word while touching my leg, and my response was, "Oh, you like Nirvana too? I'm surprised you know all the words to this." In high school, I was introduced to a new group of people through my cousin. I went to a party at one of their houses. I had a super drunk girl I had been flirting with a lot say to me, "Would you be offended if I raped you right now?" in a sultry voice. Then she jumped on me before I could answer and started to attempt making out. I was just kind of lying there on the pull-out bed with this super hot drunk girl trying to kiss me. I say trying because she passed out in the middle of it but was going on instinct or something. About that time, other people walked into the living room. They thought we were just having fun, as she'd apparently told them her plans to have with me. Because of this, one guy threw a blanket over us to give us privacy. I threw that off of me and was waving to them for help. They realized something was up, so grabbed her to help get her off me. And literally, the moment they sat her up, she went from mouth to mouth with me to puking all over my pants. So I stayed the night because I had to wash my pants and I wanted to make sure the girl was okay. That left me with her two hot friends whom I had only recently met. While we waited for my pants to get cleaned, I spent all night talking to these two awesome chicks. The two girls and I became lifelong friends that night. As for the drunk girl, she woke up and wanted to have with me still, but I refused because I couldn't be sure if she was still drunk. Out with a couple of male friends and they bought a female friend. It was New Year's Eve. We went for a meal, got on quite well. She asked if I wanted to taste her food and fed me a fork of food and vice versa. She talked loads with me and we really got on. While sitting at a table, she handed my friend she was staying at his spare house keys and said, "I don't think I'll be needing these tonight." I can't believe I did not see all the flirting at all. Things got crazy at a bar later and I ended up kissing someone else entirely. The next day they said, "What the are you up to?" She wanted you so bad. I was shocked to say the least. I think the reason I did not see it was because I thought she was way out of my league, so I was just not looking for it. Femel, just been pointed out in the comments, brought along not bought. My bad, she was in no way a woman of ill repute. I have many of these. Got what I did not realize was a booty call. Friend of a friend type deal. We'd only ever hung out at events where our peer groups happened to meet up. Honestly, didn't even know she had my number. She calls me late one night, says she's got a paper due the next morning and her laptop just died. Wanted to know if I could come over and help. I'm thinking poor girl must have gone trough everyone else before calling me and head over. I get there and she's in boy shorts and a wife beat. I'm thinking this must be what she lounges in. Sit down at the laptop and promptly discover a virus. She was not expecting this. Take me a good hour to fix everything. I thanked her for the opportunity. It was a new virus, so it was interesting. I was also embarrassed it took me so long and bounced. One woman, she was talking to me a lot. After we started dating, she admitted she was really frustrated with me. Another woman, she basically kept moving closer to me on the couch. Then she just directly asked, "I learned a few weeks ago I am autistic. I've always struggled socially. I have probably missed more because I usually on the side of caution. That is just the default for me. I just try to be respectful and not cause any trouble. Without actually getting to know someone by talking with them, I don't know if I am attracted to them. It is like if I don't think things could work out long term, I just don't care. In high school, I had a girl call my parents' house after looking it up in the phone book and calling my relatives because she didn't know my parents' names. They gave her the right number to call. It was a Friday night and I didn't have any plans. She asked if I wanted to go camping 'cause her and some friends were going. I said no, I don't have any alcohol. She said I could have some of everyone's. Then I said I don't have any camping equipment to use. She said I could use hers. Also, being as broke as I was, didn't have any money, so I said I don't have money to buy gas for my truck. She said she would give me money. It all sounded like it'd be taking too much, and I said thanks but no. The next week her friends filled me in on how she had a crush on me and really wish I was there. I had no clue. My roommates, we'll call her M, best friend, we'll call L. I had the hots for her since we were in the same English class in 9th grade. Anyway, on one occasion, I remember her talking about giving blowjobs and how S can be too big. In our apartment with just her and I, she picked up a bottle of Advil or W or E and asked me to turn away while she tried it out and confirmed that was about as big as she'd like. Some years later, M and L are having a no-pants party, which involved, as the name suggests, no pants, underwear present, and copious amounts of alcohol. I was upstairs during this because I didn't want to creep on them. I had run out of water, tea, soda, or W or E I was drinking, so I needed to go downstairs. I try to be quiet about it, but they yell Solenotics as I come down the stairs. I'm cordial and all, but head to the kitchen to refill my beverage. On my way back, Elle is on the floor in a matching set of silky green lingerie. She holds her foot up to stop me and tells me I need to comply with the no pants rule. In doing so, she grazes my and asks if I'm wearing any underwear under my gym shorts. I reply sheepishly with a no to explain why I was going to ignore the rule. They're both obviously very gone with alcohol, to the point that Elle is sloppily eating Chinese food on the floor to abate the inebriation she's feeling. I stay for conversation, but eventually we all head upstairs because it's pretty late. Elle follows me to my room, which I didn't think much of because there's a mini fridge outside my door where we kept sodas. She then convinced me to play a game. I forget the name, in which we twist each other's nipples in turn. I'm a wimp. I don't do BDSM. Suffice to say, my interest in touching her nipples quickly waned after the first couple twists of my own nipples. This was the end of the night for me. Looking back, I get the feeling there was a chance for more. Problem was she did not hold back on the titty twisters. So I have never really talked about her since it was so long ago, but this was the one I never really stopped thinking about. Back when I was in the Navy, I was on a USNES, basically a supply ship rented by the Navy from civilian merchant marines or something. It's been a while. Anyways, they were among the first combined gender ships. I was in ADP, and we got a couple people from another ship to train with us while they were in dry dock for repairs or whatever. I was interested, but she was engaged, so we just hung out because we both had stupid senses of humor and enjoyed not having any pressure hanging out, if that makes sense. So we do the whole med cruise and keep in touch, blah blah. After I get out, she invited me down to Kissimmee in Florida, where she lived at the time, with a roomie. Spend all day shooting the and how she tells me she broke it off with her fiancé a few years ago. So it comes to sleeping arrangements and I am crashing with her. She had the cutest underwear too, it even matched lol. I just snuggled up and had the best night of sleep in a while and spent the next day hitting on her. Roomie lol. I are dumb. To be fair, I was super cool with being friends and never ever looked for anything else when we were just talking. She was just an awesome girl and I kind of miss her sometimes and always wonder what if, but them's the breaks. Oh boy, my time to shine. It's 2007 and I'm 17. Rihanna told us we could stand under her umbrella, Timbaland let us know it was too late to apologize, and a young country singer named Taylor Swift started making ripples via MySpace, as Facebook was still basically for college kids. One Saturday, I ran into a coworker, Jessica, from Wetzel's Pretzels at a school neither of us attended since we were both taking the SATs that day. Jessica let me know that her parents and siblings went on vacation for the weekend, but she stayed behind due to the SAT. She invited me over to her home that night to watch a movie. So, as I head to her place that night, Makes Me Wonder by Maroon 5 is playing as I'm in my sister's hand-me-down 1998 Pontiac Grand Prix driving to her place using directions I found on MapQuest. Jessica's house was huge. She has 8 siblings and her parents, all who were gone. I rang her doorbell and she answered wearing a sports bra and Sophie shorts. She let me in and let me know that she had to change so I should go up to her room. As she changed, I turned around to be modest. She changed into some tight shorts and a shirt that totally exposed her stomach. Then we decided to go to the attic to watch a movie instead of the living room because nobody will notice if we make a mess up there. So we watched the movie, and we kept watching the movie. And then the movie ended. And then after the movie ended, she asked if I wanted to stay for a while. Unfortunately, Halo 3 came out about a week prior, so I decided I wanted to go home and play Halo 3. So I went home and played Halo 3. Then I left. For some strange reason, we never hung out again. She invited me to her hotel room to show me a research paper I expressed an interest in. This happened at an academic conference in my city. I asked her to email it to me instead. My friend explained how awkward I'd made it for everyone later because we went out drinking afterwards, and the whole time I had no idea I'd just rejected this new acquaintance, so I socialized with her normally. Well, normally for a huge nerd. I would have immediately understood the implication if it was a guy, but for some reason I miss hints very easily with women. I used to think they were more subtle, but maybe my guard is just lower. It was my freshman year of college. There was a girl I had made friends with because she was in some of my classes and we ended up in the same friend group. She asked if I wanted to get bubble tea down the street from campus. I said sure, I've never had that, sounds fun. I drove us to the shop and we got our drinks. We even sat down and chatted while we sipped and had a nice time. I drove us back to campus and parked. We both unbuckled, and then she leaned over and lightly bit me on the shoulder, then looked up at me intensely with her face still above my shoulder. And I'm like, "Welp, this was fun. We'll have to do it again sometime." And just went back about my day. To be fair, I did think it was incredibly hot, but I had a girlfriend at the time, so I just brushed it off like that was weird. Surely that was an accident. Her name was Hannah, and she was whole skies out of my league. Over several years, we'd occasionally run into each other in clubs or at gigs or just randomly in the street, and she was always really friendly with me and always offering up a seat at her table, in some cases quite literally. Like, "I'm just here with some friends, you can come hang out if you want," or "Oh, you're going to Lars and the Bastards. Cool, I'm going too. We should hang out if I see you there," in various flavors thereof, and one particularly blunt one I still can't believe I missed at the bus stop at about 10 p.m. on a club night. "I'm just headed home. Do you want to come with me?" And I just didn't hear it right, because in my head I had zero chance with this girl on any layer of any reality ever. It hit me about 8 to 10 years later that she was hitting on me with varying degrees of intensity, and I kicked myself because I fancied the dreads off her. So sure, I might be old and ugly now, but once upon a time some girl who once ended up on the Suicide Girls site in the mid-2000s had the hots for me, and that's pretty cool. When my sons are old enough and getting into crushes and whatnot, I'll be telling them to swing for the fences, because it's better to strike out a couple of times if it means getting some home runs than it is to spend your game on the bench.